Chill lo-fi music for sleep. My chill hot music. Welcome back to Hybrid Theory. I'm Aurian Archive, and hopefully, this time, today, it will actually be the stream about tablets. Or more precisely, what I'm looking for in a tablet and why I haven't actually replaced the last tablet that I broke. So let's jump in. Since the multiple previous attempts at this stream have all ended in abject failure, we've got a bit of an outline going here. So if you want to read ahead, feel free to do so. But we'll take it one step at a time and hopefully get to a logical endpoint. From the first moment that Bill Gates walked out onto, I want to say it was a CES, it may have been another trade show, but with the first Windows tablet computers have always been not a problem in search of a solution, but a solution in search of a problem. What need did tablet computers fill? What purpose was a tablet computer useful for? And for several years, tablet computers were basically useless. In order to get any appreciable amount of battery life out of them to run the software that you might want a computer to run, be it in a medical, automotive, heating, venting, air conditioning, restaurant facility, you needed to have the only way you could get appreciable battery power for all day battery life was to use very weak processors that probably weren't actually capable of running the programs that you wanted to run. Flash forward to the Android revolution and the rise of the Apple iPhones and the ARM processor revolution in general, and you started to get processors that could realistically give you an 8-hour battery life with a reasonably resolution display with a reasonable amount of processing power that could actually run the kinds of applications that would be useful while holding a handheld computer. So tablet computers have basically grown up from being a novelty that were never practical to being solutions that started to be applicable to actual problems. Okay, well, if tablets are now useful today, what do most people actually use a tablet for? Well, that answer can be obtained just by looking at the two most popular tablets that are actually on the market. The first one being the Apple iPad. And if you'll notice that Apple very quickly, if you go to the Apple website, focuses on the iPad mini. And if we do a quick interact here and scroll down, we see that there's bit by bit, delightfully capable, surprisingly affordable iPad Air, iPad Pro. And we see Apple saving its productivity iPad kind of for last, even though this is the iPad that you probably do see in an industrial setting or in a non consumer setting, say like an orchestra or a choral group or the automotive mechanic. They're probably carrying an iPad Pro because of the more amount of uh, processing power that it brings to the table and the image processing capabilities that it brings to the table, and the resolution image quality that it brings to the table. The iPad Pro screen is nothing to sneer at. It's really, really good, and Apple's M1 chip is very powerful, will process most of the applications, including image recognition, that most people would want to use. There's a reason Apple has the best selling productivity tablets. But at the other end of the spectrum, is the best-selling Android tablet, which isn't an Android tablet. It's Amazon's Kindle Fire, or just now Fire HD, or Fire Kids. And these tablets, they ostensibly run Android. They don't really. They run a custom version of Android that is not in line with the primary Android open source builds or the closed source Google Play integrated Android builds, and is thus several years out of date. I'm not even sure if Apple keeps up to date with security packages, and it generally uses an interface that the last one I used was utterly abysmal as anything other than an interface to watch movies, play music, or read a book, which is pretty much the Amazon software ecosystem. So if you went for entertainment and content consumption, well, that's the other thing that tablets are really good for. They give you a good display or a good enough display with a good enough battery life to be useful to watch a movie and not feel like you're on a cramped screen. So that kind of, going back to our outline, what tablets have really fallen into. They either target very specific industrial needs or very specific commercial needs, or they target a very specific consumer need. But it always feels like there's something missing, like nobody really puts the tablet that you actually want to buy together. Well, actually, some people do. Uh, looking over, as I find the actual link that I thought I had put in here. Oh, here it is. Okay, and we'll kill off the background so it's easier to read. And we'll do a quick interact. And there is somebody out there who came up with, they called it the SmartPad, the world's first 3-in-1K 4K smart device, which is an Android tablet PC, works as a smart television, is a portable touch-enabled monitor. So basically this combines the functions of a tablet with the functions of a monitor with the functions of a drawing tablet. And you really have to ask yourself, why is this such a big deal? When was this? Uh, Going back to Interact, when was this first announced? Introducing SmartPad? Do we have a actual date for when this went live? And all right, 2020. So 2020, we get the first Kickstarter for a smart tablet. Problem is, the timeline just doesn't make any sense. And let me explain. First of all, there's a whole thing with DisplayPort over USB Type-C. Okay? DisplayPort output has been in cell phones for years. In fact, the most popular console that you can buy today, the Nintendo Switch, uses DisplayPort over USB Type-C in order to offer HDMI output over the Switch dock, which is just a USB-C hub. And if we look elsewhere, we find that VESA, way back in 2014, added adaptive sync to the DisplayPort video standard. So if you're using DisplayPort as your transmission protocol for your screen, you've got, since 2014, and you're running DisplayPort 1.2a, if your display controller is compatible with that, you have FreeSync or adaptive sync built in. This is coming up almost a decade old. I mean, 8 years ago, 8 years ago as of this May is when FreeSync was added to DisplayPort. That's kind of a big deal. And then there is another aspect, color quality and color control. And VESA maintains Display HDR. And long ago, they set up Display HDR 400, which specifies an 8-bit per color channel transmission rate, global dimming, and also requires FreeSync or adaptive sync support. This is not new. It's very old. In fact, it actually should be built into the hardware that's in every single shipping MediaTek, Xinos, Qualcomm, Apple hardware out there. This is part of the industry specifications. So, why is it so difficult for tablet vendors to offer DisplayPort over USB-C input? Why is it such a big deal that in 2020 there is the first DisplayPort? Actually, I don't even know if this is doing DisplayPort input over USB Type-C. It may just be doing an HDMI input over micro HDMI. Why did it take so long? Early, 2012, 2014 to 2020. Why is it taking so long to actually support what the hardware has supported in specification? And that's one of the reasons why I've never really bothered to replace my Kindle tablet. And one that I broke is there's no tablet out there that has the features that I want to see in a tablet. Or not that I want to see, that I expect to see. Because when I get down right to it, where am I looking for? Here we are. I expect to see a shipping tablet today, support a multi-level pen touch interface. I expect to be able to use a tablet as a drawing tablet. Very few tablets have that kind of support. Most of them are limited to the 10-point multi-touch for your fingers. And that kind of, I don't want to say annoys me, but it really does annoy me. And what really started this is I was contacted by a vendor. Was I interested in their new tablet? Did I want to have a look at it? And I decided I was going to run an overview of what I expect from a tablet and why I was not interested in a tablet that they've put out. Now, to be fair, this is a vendor that I've bought a number of products from. And specifically speaking, we're looking at Umidigi, which has gotten into the tablet market. Now, Umidigi, over the years, they've been expanding their market. They've gone into smartwatches, they've gone into earbuds, which honestly, I'm not a big fan of the antenna sticking out like that. I mean, you look like a extra from Star Trek, Babylon 5, or Star Wars. And I went into this on the stream about the Drop Grell collaboration, where the Grells have a short antenna, which I think is an acceptable compromise, gives you something to physically control the headset, to control the earbuds with, while not being obviously a science fiction prop. And I've had a number of Umidigi phones over the years. Now, I'm pretty brutal when it comes to phones, and I've broken a lot of them. I'm also given a couple away when I bought a new one. Umidigi makes good hardware. Now, if you want to knock Umidigi for a problem, their biggest problem is the lack of software support. There's not really uh, a new version of Android that's deployed to pre-existing phones. Uh, like I bought, let's scroll down the list, the Umidigi F1 Play. It has not received an update beyond the version of Android that it shipped with it. Got a couple of over-the-air security patches, but that's been it. For the most part, this isn't a problem to somebody like me. All of the Umidigi products I've personally owned have an unlocked bootloader. If I really wanted to, I could just roll my own Android or Linux installation, install it, and just have platform mobile. In fact, I've actually done that on a couple of Umidigi phones. I did that with the Umidigi One that was my drone phone for a long while. So just keeping in mind that if you're really interested in keeping your software up to date, Umidigi may not be great about supporting the software themselves, but they don't get in the way and prevent you from supporting your software yourself, which I'm okay with. Uh, And I think that's really important looking forward is how easy it is to update the software on the phone, to change it out, to do something else with it. And, well, Umadigi's gotten into as I said, they've gotten into the tablet market, and they've released what they're calling the A11 tab. Now, they are focusing on this is a content consumption powerhouse, so they're focusing on the display. They call it an audio-visual feast. It's a 10.4-inch. They're calling it a 2K resolution display. But as I was scrolling down here, what I couldn't help but notice is that there's no actual listing of the color quality. There's no HDR VESA specification. There's no mention of variable refresh rate, aka FreeSync. Um, it's kind of a little underwhelming, if I'm honest, because looking at this information that's present, this really sounds like a 2K resolution IPS 6-bit per color channel display, and that means the colors aren't really going to be that good. Uh, Now, if Fumidigi had an HDR certification to go with this, or to say that it's HDR 400 compliant, or had a higher level of HDR certification out of the box, or compliant with, maybe not necessarily a fully certified device, but at least compliant with using a panel that elsewhere has been certified, okay, then I might buy the audio-visual feed, but it doesn't have that. Likewise, I'm not exactly sold on the graphics performance because we do have the listing here, the graphic that is in here, and this isn't anything to write home about. Now, to be fair, when it comes to Android gaming, most Android games are not really not really as intensive as you might expect. It would not surprise me to see that a lot of games render in a 720p back end. That is to say, they run at 1280 by 720 progressive screen. That means each screen for each 60 hertz refresh rate, and then they just pump that screen through an upscaling uh, to the display. And that's what this graphic card should be fully capable of doing. So, uh, whether or not you can observe the difference, this isn't going. I don't think this is going to bench very well. It's not going to. It's not going to say that it's performing very well in actual benchmarks, but on the surface, I think for an average actual playing game, probably not bad. So kind of continuing on, 4 gigabyte RAM, 12 gigabytes RAM. Yeah, okay, it's all right. Including a micro SD card expansion, actually really good. We've heard Valve admit it as well. The read rates from a solid state drive are, yeah, uh, they're better than a serial ATA solid state drive. So there is that where if you really have to have a lot of applications or movement, and if I read the specifications on the MediaTek chipsets correctly, if you're trying to record 4K video, uh, the solid the micro SD card writer should be up to the task of recording 4K video. So it's fast enough for anything you want to do. And if it's fast enough to record 4K video, it's definitely fast enough to play it back. So I really don't think that the storage space is that big of an issue. And okay, the battery life, okay, sounds fine. Speaker system. This is where, again, I'm not sure if how good this is would actually be in paper, because there's no like Dolby Atmos to go with it. There's uh, no when I went through here, unless you dig deep into the MediaTek platform, you probably this is not a high-res audio compatible chipset. I think this thing topped out at 96K at 16-bit, maybe a little higher. So the four-channel speakers, maybe not that good, maybe not that great, but really, if you're an audiophile, you've probably got a USB DAC anyways. Uh, So if you're just listening to audio from the speakers holding the tablet, you're probably not caring about the sound quality being audiophile grade. And if you do care about audiophile grade, you've probably already got the infrastructure to for that to not be an issue. Now, the big selling point, and where this did catch my eye, is it is shipping with an actual global 4G LTE system. And I looked up the list of channels that support it. It does support T-Mobile and AT&T and the US. It does theoretically support Verizon LTE channels, but I know from previous experience that Verizon is a jerk when it comes to any device that was not bought from Verizon. So even if you've got the physical channel support, the radio to talk to Verizon, that doesn't necessarily mean the device is going to work. And that's entirely on Verizon's head. They're jerks. End of story. But if you're on AT&T or T-Mobile, this should work fine in the US, at least looking at the specifications. And Android 11. I've got an Android 11 phone. Android 11 is okay. I mean, but I think this is going to be a very big sticking point because one of the places where you might be likely to use this tablet is in a car, and Android Auto is still fundamentally broken on Android 11, and Google pulled a Microsoft. Google's now only working on Android 11 with Android 12. Unless you're on Android 12, they're not interested in fixing your problems. Same with YouTube. If you're running YouTube on Android 11, Google's not interested in fixing your problems. So there are some very big source upstream issues with shipping Android 11. There's a number of application issues that will not be addressed by Google. I'm sorry, they won't be. So this is something where I'm not sure shipping Android 11 is really a good choice, but okay, they asked. Here's what I got to say on it. Split screen view, standard Android. And side fingerprint and Face ID, I would not use Face ID at all. As far as the fingerprint unlock, it looks like they put the fingerprint on the power button. I'm not a big fan of that design, if I'm honest. The phone I'm using now has fingerprint in display, and once you've gone fingerprint in display, or once you've done fingerprint on the back, it's really hard to go away from either one of those. Fingerprint on the power button, cute. Uh, but not very practical for day-to-day use. Okay, going down, smart keyboard docking. They do ship with a keyboard. Now, I have no, this is just going to be a membrane keyboard. For someone like me who favors mechanical keyboards, this thing would probably drive you bonkers. But it is a nice stand that you can connect it with, and it does give you a clamshell function, and it does give you a mouse pad straight out of the box. So, uh, I'm I'm not really sure what to say here. This is where if I was using this as a keyboard system, I would just haul along one of my Kinesis TKOs and just use that. I'd also have to haul along a USB Type-C hub, and that's just a quick overview of the tablet. Now, since Umidigi did act me, was I interested in it? Yeah, I'm interested in it, but it's not what I'm looking for. And okay, it does actually have a skonkingly good price point. If we bring up and look at it on AliExpress, we can see that the base tablet is selling for around 170. And with the keyboard cover, you're still at 200. Now, the domestic pricing on the Umidigi store on Amazon is not so compelling. It's priced at 319. There is a coupon which brings it down to 300, but you're still paying $100 extra. If you were buying this, I'd strongly say buy it from AliExpress and just accept that it's going to be a month or two delivery. Now, if you want it now and you need to replace the tablet now, you can get it from the U.S. store and get it shipped very quickly. You are paying a price premium that way. Now, let's go back to the Impress file. So, I like Umidigi as a hardware vendor. They've made some really good devices. I like them, not from necessarily a software vendor standpoint, but I do like that they do get their devices out of the way if you, as the end user, want to do something with the software. I do think that Umidigi has done a great job slowly expanding away from uh, some of the tackier advertisements. I'm looking at Umidigi Rome, for example, into they name checked iFixit in some of their promotional videos. They've definitely gotten better at the promotional videos. Uh, but if we were, talking about if Umidigi really wanted to make a tablet that would appeal to me as a user, there are some things where I would definitely be expecting. I'd expect straight out of the box the capability to be a portable monitor. I want to hook up from my Nintendo Switch or from my desktop computer or from my PlayStation or from my Dreamcast or from my GameCube. I want to do an HDMI to DisplayPort to USB Type-C converter, plug it in, and just have it work as a monitor. DisplayPort can do that. I'd really want to see that built in. I really would like to see, looking for it, a better quality drawing capability, a pen touch system, a higher level of depth recognition. Because if you can use a tablet also as a pen input for your desktop computer, then you've increased you can rate the price a little bit. Yeah, we are getting that adding in that deeper level of control, adding in those functions is going to bump the cost up. But now you've increased the functionality that the device can offer. And we see here where Huan has their drawing tablet hooked up to a phone. Not really sure how effective that would be. I really think that's just a staged photo. I'm not sure anyone would draw like that with their phone in their hand, but okay, some people might. I mean, if you're stuck on a plane and that's what you're doing, that might be a good option. But that's a feature that I'd really love to see in a shipping tablet, not in something that's claiming to be the first example of its kind. That's, well, several years past the point where a tech base was already ready to pull these kinds of stunts off. And other thing that I would definitely want to see in in a future one is I want to actually see a display HDR certification. I mean, I want to know that the display is actually capable of giving me a good color quality um, display back. I mean, if I hold the images I have up to the phone I'm actually using and do a display comparison, there's not really much of a comparison. It's obvious that the images are using 6-bit per color channel, and that the phone I'm actually carrying right now has at least a 10-bit per color channel HDR capable display. So a slightly better panel, little, yeah, I realize this is like adding $100 onto the cost, but it makes the tablet more functional and more useful to end user. And another thing that I would bring up is, and we'll go back before I go down this path, we'll go back to the Impress file. An exit path from Android. Google is being a complete and utter Microsoft right about now. We've heard talks about Fuchsia OS, we've heard talks about other projects within Google. Uh, Almost everybody in the Android industry right now really hates Google. Everyone wants an exit from the Google Android system. But what that exit is, a lot of vendors really have no idea because Google does offer them a number of services that are very difficult to replicate. Google offers a common storefront. Google offers a login service. Google offers an update service. Well, there's another vendor who's doing that too. There's a little company you may have heard of called Valve. Now, Valve has run what they call SteamOS for a long time, and they're updating how SteamOS works, and they are moving to Arch Linux for the Steam Deck. Now the Arch Linux that Valve is using for the Steam Deck is x86 based, but Arch Linux does have an ARM port, and I'm pretty sure that Valve is working because when you put it at a processor level. Once you have the wine or proton, in this case, let's just call it proton. Once you have proton compiled, so that's running the Windows library files through proton, you could technically or theoretically recompile proton to ARM and then run all of those same libraries or all of those executable files or everything that proton handles could be processed on the ARM architecture and not necessarily on x86. Now, you might not be as performative on x86, but you'd be close enough with modern ARM processors where it's very realistic that Valve could forcibly run that huge library of Windows applications, that huge back catalog, all on ARM Linux without a problem because that's how Proton has been being built. Now, keeping this in mind, if you are already publishing natively on x86 Linux, generally speaking, switching to publishing on ARM Linux is just as simple as a recompile. If we look at Valve as looking to implement compile just in time for all of the application, that is to say, a developer uploads their source code to Valve, and Valve is the one who actually compiles the targeted binary for the end user to run automatically. And I think this is the reason we're seeing the changes in how Valve handles back versions of a game that if Valve is doing compile just in time to target the architecture that the user is actually on, Valve improves the performance of the game in general because they can optimize that game as it's installing for the architecture that the user is actually on, and Valve can also make security changes to the build as well. If something comes along that needs to be changed in the upstream, under Valve's change, how Valve is approaching game distribution is changing and they're targeting publishing Windows and Linux simultaneously. Valve's building into the system the ability to, there's been an API break or an ABI break, we can fix that and compile your game still good. Now, in some cases, this may require a developer to actually take time to go ahead and make a change manually, but a lot of that stuff may be able to just be fixed on an automated backend. And Valve may just, as part of the deal of the agreement to hosting on to having Steam sell your game, as Valve will handle any API or ABI breaks going forwards, which would be a big deal and would certainly justify the price premium that Valve charges in regards to a competitor such as Epic Games, who doesn't do any of that. All right, so keeping in mind we're going back to the Impress slide, everybody's looking for an exit path. And I think Umidigi would probably be well advised to look at an exit path as well, is maybe offer two different software loadout for a tablet. They offer both the Android package, but also offer something that's, well, a little bit more full featured, full focus, isn't as dependent on the Google software ecosystem, working with Valve, becoming an official uh, vendor for Steam Linux ARM might be a way for Umidigi to go forward and more aggressively target an American market. And another suggestion that I make in that line is strongly consider shipping phones or tablets with Plasma Mobile instead of Google. Because pretty sure we've all been there. The first thing you do when you get your Android phone in is you replace these interface with Nova Launcher or another launcher of your choice. There's a couple ones out there. I always do Nova. Now, in regard to my current phone, there are some teething issues because uh, there are some really odd permissions in how Android was deployed to this phone that sometimes the default interface insists on coming up. But it's something else to keep in mind that offering alternative for users to take advantage of. Give me. Uh, and kind of to cap it off, I've been active for how long have I been using Umidigi products? And well, the answer is my first Umidigi phone was the Umidigi Super, which was not compatible with 4G in the US, was only compatible with 3G on the T-Mobile network. But I still love that phone. It had a great camera, and since then I've pretty much followed Umidigi products. And I've bought a number, I've wrecked a number, and I've always been perfectly happy with what I've gotten. But I do think there's room for improvement. For what it is, at the price point that it is, the Umidigi A11 tab at $170 US is very good, probably very good value for money. Not exactly the tablet that I personally would be wanting to spend my own money on because it just doesn't have the features that I would be looking for in a tablet. But if it somehow was another version was able to offer those features, the better quality screen, a pen input, uh, another thing that I would really like to see on tablets is more USB ports. Is do a USB port on one side, have one on either end of the tablet, and this increases both the ability to charge it at the same time that you run a USB DAC, a USB keyboard, a USB mouse, give the user something more to work with and increase overall, or just do, uh, I don't know, come on, if the mouse can be, the mouse isn't being seen on the interact. Oh well. One disadvantage of using the in rendering for OBS. Uh, but thinking about where you would put multiple USB ports would be something to look at, and I just give more options. That's really all I've got to say on this subject. And with that, I'm Aurian Archive.